Page 12, just a closer walk with thee. Let me say first that you can play it just like it's written, just do exactly what they're telling you to do is fine. However, I have some suggestions. I always have suggestions. I don't see anything in this piece that is overly tricky or complicated. I'll point a few things out just so you know. In the first line, in the right hand, let's talk right hand. It starts right out with 2-note chord, right? The melody's the top note. We want to hear the melody, right? Okay. Now, as you're playing this, first off, get those notes down at the same time if you can, and bring out the melody. Now, it is a good habit to get into eventually, and you just as well start now. I don't see any point in waiting. This is more of an advanced suggestion, but hey, if you can do it, do it. And that is, experiment first with just the melody, all right? Let's say, for instance, in the first line, it's this. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, that's the melody, and that's what we want to hear. It's all connected, it's all phrased. Therefore, we would like the fingers to connect it, just like I just did, but you're playing another note, and that can get distracting. So even though you're playing another note, try and see if you can connect the melody notes together so they're legato. Okay, the bottom, the second note in the right hand, the bottom note, may not necessarily be connected. You can do the best you can with it, but it's the melody notes we want connected. Even though you're pedaling it, no, don't rely on the pedal for that. Learn to do it with your fingers. Okay, throughout this whole piece, see if you can't connect the melody notes in the right hand with the fingers. You have to learn it without pedal, of course, but you should be doing that anyway. Pedal comes in last. Most of the stuff on pages 12 and 13 is actually, the two pages are identical for the most part. So if you can play page 12, you can play most of page 13 already. They're almost the same thing. Not quite, but almost the same thing. In the right hand, I would like to suggest one slight fingering change. It happens on both pages. I'll just point it out on 12, and you can find it on 13. Go straight across. Third line down. In the right hand, you have a B flat and an E, natural. Okay. They're saying 1 and 4. I say yuck. Don't like that fingering at all. Even in the second measure, it's inconvenient. It doesn't belong there. I'm not sure why they want 1 and 4 there. I don't understand. I would strongly recommend a 2 and 5 on that. Because you're right there in position at the end of the second measure to keep going. If you do a 1 and 4, your fifth finger's got to play that E over there, so you got to get, So I would recommend 2 and 5. I don't think the left hand will cause you a problem. There is a note at the bottom of page 12 that we're going to play the eighth notes uneven. We're going to swing them. Now, the big thing here is the pedaling. I'd like to talk about the pedaling, because I really don't like what they're doing in some places. Where do I start? I'll just start at the beginning. Now, again, I said 12 and 13 are almost identical, so most of the stuff I'm going to talk about on page 12, you'll find on page 13. I'm not going to point it all out, so you can go find it where it is and apply it there too. Some of their pedaling is actually pretty good. Some of it is, yeah. Right at the beginning, they're indicating lift the pedal up on the last beat of the measure. And I agree. Lift it up on the fourth beat. You got to hold the half note down in the left hand for full 2 counts, but you lift the pedal up just the same. So, for instance, the first few measures is with the pedal would be that. So, lift it up on the last beat of those first and second measure. In the second line, same thing. Lift it up on the last beat of those first 2 measures in the second line. In the last line, the first two measures is the same thing. Lift the pedal up on the last beat of the measure. In fact, in the last line, I would recommend you lift the pedal up on the last beat of the measure for every measure in the last line on page 12, all the way across. You're keeping your hands down when you have to. You keep the finger, like the whole notes in the right hand for the last two. You have to hold those down for 4, even though you're lifting the pedal up. That's as it is. It's the way it's done. So, however, there's a couple of situations where I'd like to change the pedaling, I think, and I'll show you why. Take a look at the second line on page 12. It's the third measure. Okay, we have these notes in the right hand. Okay, if I pedal it the way they're doing, I get this. I think that's mushy. I don't like that mixture of sounds like that. So I am recommending that you push the pedal down on the second beat of the measure, not the first. Okay? That way we don't get these two notes hanging out. Same thing on the next line down. Third measure over, it's here. So I push the pedal down with the dotted half note. And in this case, you can push it down pretty much at the same time, so you make sure you catch the 8th note in the left hand. That happens on the next page too. However, there's one thing I want to change in the left hand to accommodate this pedal change, and this is, again, a more advanced thing, but you can handle it, right? And that's the thing called finger pedaling. Finger pedaling is when you use the fingers to hold notes down longer than they're marked, so you get the sound. You're doing the job of the pedal. The finger's doing the job of the pedal. It's holding the sound out. Go back to the second line, third measure, where we had this. Okay. Well, in the left hand, you got this going. We don't want to lose the C, the first note. That's an important note, okay? So what I'm recommending you do is hold that down like a quarter note. Hold it down until the pedal is pressed, so we keep that sound we want to keep. That's a good sound. So I'm going to hold it down. And again, in the third line, same thing. I want to hold that first C in the left hand down like a quarter note, just until the pedal can catch it, until we push the pedal down. And once you push the pedal down, you can let up on the C. It sounds like you had the pedal down for the whole thing. We just don't have the mushiness of those 8th notes. Then the last thing would be we want to make sure we have a break between the phrases. All right, a little bit of silence. For instance, where's a good one? Page 12, third line down, last measure. The first 2 beats is ending a phrase. Next 2 beats is starting a phrase. We got to lift the pedal up before we start the phrase, so we get a silence in there. Okay, and that happens elsewhere. Similar thing, so make sure you separate the phrases. I'll let you do the dynamics, you can work all that out. It says very slowly, I don't know about that, but you can take it whatever tempo you feel. It's not a fast piece. You can find recordings of this, I'm sure. So it's up to you about how fast you think you would sing it. Having said all that, let's give this thing a try and see how it goes together. There's a retardando at the end, at the bottom of page 13. I'm going to ignore that because we have a metronome. Check the fingering out for the last 2 measures. They're on page 13 at the bottom. Left hand, it's here. To the 5-1 on the 2 Gs, shouldn't be a problem. If you have to look down, that's fine, look down. Eventually you'll get a feel for it and you won't have to look down to make that kind of change, because that fingering actually very common. Now I've sped this up a little bit. I put the metronome on 70. I just hope that's not too fast for you to be able to play along and hear the notes. You may have to play with me one hand at a time to hear the notes, really. but I'm concerned that playing it slower will just put us both to sleep. I'll give us 4 counts and we'll begin. So your right hand's here, left hand's here, foot's on the pedal. All right. 1, 2, ready, go.